1977. 'Twas the year of this, and the year of this. Hey guys, welcome to Amity Tracks. 1977. This is the most interesting year I think I've had to cover so far. I didn't say the best, but the most interesting. I didn't quite realize that I was putting everything together. There's just so much going on, so many things. I mean, important things starting up, real important debuts, things clashing, different genres clashing and almost fighting it out. It's a fascinating year. So I was looking forward to looking into this. But before we get into the music, real quick, what's going on in 77 around the world, or at least here in the United States? Jimmy Carter is still your president. Rocky wins Best Picture that year. But I think more importantly than Rocky, a little old movie called Star Wars is released in 1977. And yes, it is Star Wars. It is not Episode 4, A New Hope. It is Star Wars. Hulk Hogan makes his wrestling debut as the Super Destroyer. Atari releases the first home game console. And Elvis, that is Elvis Presley, dies in 1977. All right. What's going on in music? There's an elephant in the room that I need to address just at the outset. There's a handful of records released in 1977 that are hugely important, hugely influential, and objectively great, at least for rock and roll. I like them, but in my heart of hearts, if I'm making an honest list, probably not going to be in my top 10. But I need to obviously address them. I can at least put some of these in my honorable mentions just for their sheer importance alone. And I did re-listen to them recently, just like, okay, let's see if there's, just something clicks or some revelations. And no, I still just really like them, but don't quite love them. I'm talking about pretty much mostly the genre of punk. I mean, you have the Sex Pistols, never mind the Bullocks. Here's the Sex Pistols coming out. I like the yellow cover. I don't know why my CD cover is the pink. It doesn't matter. The Sex Pistols debut. It just really shakes things up. I enjoy listening to it. And in fact, I put it on the other day just to make sure I still felt the way I felt about it. It's actually pretty hooky, And I mean, what was incredibly shocking in the day that it came out, it's not quite as shocking anymore, but still a genuinely great listen. Got the debut from The Clash. The Clash, incredibly important band. A band that I admire a great deal. You'll probably see some of their other stuff in the next few years, but the debut I have, we'll just call it in the honorable mention. Elvis Costello's debut, My Aim is True. I've really gotten into Elvis Costello lately, but I really love some of the ones coming up in the next few years. You'll see those in probably some of these lists, but I'm just going to keep his hugely important debut here in the honorable mentions. So there you go. I mean, like I said, I had to address it. But all right, let's get into, I guess, some of the other honorable mentions here. There's a ton of stuff. Grab a CD here. Dennis Wilson's one and only solo album, Pacific Ocean Blue. Pretty awesome. Pretty kind of raw and, I don't know, sort of decadent, wasted LA feel. Not surprisingly, Dennis Wilson. The rest here's vinyl. Let me grab these. Let's go kind of rapid fire here, because also with 77, there's a lot of really good stuff that came out. I got Pink Floyd's Animals here. I know some of you would definitely have this in your top 10. I do like it. It's just my top 10 is kind of loaded, and it is what it is. Ooh, that was loud. It's okay. The record's fine. The record's okay. My on again, off again relationship with Billy Joel continues. The Stranger, probably his most accomplished studio album, comes out in '77. It's genuinely really good. You know, I'm a Steely Dan fan. Here's another one that some of y'all would have assumed was in my top 10, but just have it in the honorable mention here. Asia. I mean, awesome record, of course, and sort of audiophiles love this record. If you have some high end, you know, turntable and speakers and everything else, like this is the one people put on, right? To impress people. The Kinks, I am happy to announce, have sort of come out of their doldrums, in my view, and this is the beginning of their Arista period, which I love. I'm gonna do a Kinks week sometime in the future, but I love their Arista period, and it starts here with Sleepwalker. Great record. The Kinks are, I think, back to form here, you know, in the next 7 records or so. But this one opens it up. Sleepwalker. Great. God, Jukebox. I was about to say Jukebox Hero. That's not the Kinks. Jukebox Music. Great song. Title track's great. Kraftwerk continues their groundbreaking, awesome work with Trans Europe Express. I can't talk about this year without at least mentioning Kiss Alive 2. I mean, for that album cover alone. Oh, actually, here, see it better on the back. This makes it. There's a lot of pyrotechnics there. It's awesome. It's awesome. Okay. Steve Miller Band, Book of Dreams, kind of the companion piece to Fly Like an Eagle, also filled with hits. Jet Airliner, Swing Town, Jungle Love. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting. He actually recorded Fly Like an Eagle and Book of Dreams really in the same sessions, and then just sort of divvied up the material between the 2 records. It's a hell of a productive session, wouldn't you say? Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell. Gotta love the meat. Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell. I've come to appreciate this record more and more for its bombast, and it is awesome. It is awesome. Eric Clapton puts out Slow Hand. It's a great album cover. I've always thought that album cover was pretty cool. Actually, here you go. There you go. Puts out Slow Hand. You know, I guess continuing his, you know, mid to late 70s sort of more laid back, relaxed approach. It's still good stuff on here. The core is cool. Got Cocaine on there, of course. Wonderful Tonight. Lay Down Sally. It was good. Good. And finally, in the honorable mentions, Crosby, Stills, and Nash return finally. Put out CSN, which is a record I actually like quite a bit. In the same year, the duo of Crosby and Nash put out this live album entitled Live, which is actually very good too. And for the price of $2.99, who can complain? All right, so here we go. Now let's get into the top 10 in this fascinating year. It's funny, if you look at my notes here that I made, I've got all these scratch outs and arrows. I'm moving things around. It's just, there's so many crazy things going on in this year musically. Well, let's start with this. In number 10, my 10 slot. Yeah, how uncool am I that I have the Sex Pistols and the Clash just in my honorable mentions, but in my number 10 slot, I have the soundtrack to Star Wars. Okay, where's my geek flag fly, right? Let me defend and explain. John Williams' score to the original Star Wars film. First of all, I've mentioned in previous videos, I am a sucker for soundtracks. I really like soundtracks. I'm a big movie fan as well as music fan, and I love soundtracks because, you know, it's bringing the 2 together. Secondly, I genuinely feel this is the greatest motion picture soundtrack ever put out. or at least of original material that was composed for the film, not just pulling classics and you know what I mean. But like as far as an original soundtrack, I this is the greatest. Get a little personal here. This is probably the first record, not this one because I wore my original out. This is the one I rebought, but this is probably the first record of music that I ever really got into when I was a little kid. I'm that right. I'm right in that right age range where Star Wars was kind of like religion, for me when I was a kid, right? All of us of that age. And I found this soundtrack just magical. I Man, I listened to it over and over and over again. Because you got to remember, this was before you could order anything on Netflix or I guess Disney Plus, which is where you find it now. Um, Before DVDs, I guess VHS was starting to come out in into the 80s. But if you remember, George Lucas stubbornly would not put this out for at least a decade or so. I don't think it was till the early 90s when Lucas finally, you know, put this out on VHS. So like you couldn't just like watch Star Wars whenever you wanted to. And so I had this. I think a lot of kids had this. And John Williams' score is so detailed and so beautiful and so wonderfully put together. And if you remember the film, there's very little film time where there isn't music somewhere in there. And so, this is a double album, right? It's a whole score. And pretty much plays out through pretty much most of the film. And it is such an integral part of the film that I found as a kid, and I'm sure maybe some of you guys, I could just sit down and listen to this and just replay the movie in my mind, and that's how I could watch Star Wars before you could have it on VHS and then DVD later and whatever. So, I don't know. If I really had balls, I'd put this in my number one slot. That's probably how I feel about it. But number 10, the Star Wars soundtrack. Okay. Number 9. Got this one CD. I've seen this on vinyl, but it's like over $100, and I don't know. I'm gonna put it out. This is the Grateful Dead, and it is. Let's see. Let me get it right. So, yes, Cornell, May 8th, 1977. I just want to make sure I got it right. Now, amongst Dead collectors, and I am a sort of casual Dead collector. I am not one who has hundreds of Dead shows, but I have a decent number. What I've tried to do is sort of find what is considered kind of the best out of each era, and at least have those. But I'm not like a exhaustive collector or anything. But this, I got to give a shout out. My good friend Ben recommended it because he is a Dead collector, and I remember I talked to him. I was like, "All right, what's the greatest Dead show ever?" And he hemmed and hawed, and then with all the caveats of, well, it depends on the era, blah blah blah. But when push came to shove, he gave me this one. He actually burned me a copy on some CDs, and then I loved it so much I saw an official copy out there, and I went and bought it. But remarkable Dead show. They were just so on this night. The usual. It's 3 discs. It's the whole show. Usual thing, starting out with kind of more compact songs, and then the second half really stretching out and jamming and doing all the Dead thing. And it's really that second half that it just one of those magic nights just opens up. So there you go. Where are we at? Number 8. Maybe this will get some of my cool credentials back. Television, Marquee Moon, remarkable record. I don't know. Is it new wave? Is it punk? These guys are too good of musicians to be really punk. I don't know. But just the guitar interplay between Tom Verlaine and Richard Lloyd just knocks you out on this. Yeah, it's just sort of edgy, new wavy stuff. But they only put out a couple more records. But I mean, this is remarkable. Okay, that was 8. 7. Yeah, since I've moved everything around, my numbers are all off now. 7, another debut from Talking Heads. You're going to be hearing more from the Talking Heads. They actually don't do the D. You're going to be hearing more from Talking Heads in years to come. But we'll start here with their really kind of jittery, awesome debut. You've got Uh-Oh, Love Comes to Town, No Compassion, Don't Worry About the Government, Psycho Killer, Pulled Up. Just awesome, awesome stuff. They would get more complex, but I don't know if they've ever been a little more edgy than this. So there you go. All right. What number are we on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, number 6. Bob Marley's Exodus. Bob Marley and the Wailers, Exodus. I mean, this is almost like a greatest hits. Oh, God, what do you got on here? Exodus, Jamming, Waiting in Vain, Three Little Birds, One Love, People Get Ready. Man, Natural Mystic. Yeah, I mean, it's just, what do you say? I guess in my view, probably his best studio record. I don't know, but Exodus, can't argue with that. Coming in number 5. Where are we at? 5. I mentioned them already in the honorable mention. You know, I've got a weakness for this band. I just do. Got Kiss, Love Gun, ridiculous album cover, every adolescent boy's fantasy, right? Um, Love Gun. I mean, what do you say, man? If you do like Kiss and you're into their 70s heyday, it is hard to beat this. I think this is the final great record from that original run. Kind of falls apart after this. I mean, they put out Alive 2, and then then you get Dynasty, and you get into the 80s. Yeah, different animal. One of these days, I'll do a Kiss video. I will. Well, we've already done that. Actually, go back and watch that. That's a great video. If you go to the deep dive section in our on our channel, one of our earlier videos we did, I'm particularly proud of because it's a lot of fun, is Kiss 1978, where we're just going to dive into that year, look at the ridiculous solo albums. It's a fun story, even if you don't like the band. But anyway, Love Gun. Okay, 4 and 3 are the same artist. Remarkable year for this guy. And I just finished doing a week on this guy. So, I don't know if I need to say anything further, but I have records 1 and 2 of the Berlin trilogy. Well, so at 4, I would put Heroes, and at 3, I would put Low. So, Low and Heroes. I mean, you want to hear about these? Go back to my Bowie top 10 video because they're both in the top 10 of that ranking, and I'll talk all about them. All right, so if you want to kind of hear about these 2 records, collaborations with Brian Eno, brilliantly experimental but also strangely accessible, I think. And then of course the title track of Heroes includes Robert Fripp's iconic guitar line, which, interesting story that I failed to mention in my Bowie video, so I can say it here. I've read that Fripp came into the studio like cold, hadn't heard the song, and just laid down that guitar line, that iconic guitar line in Heroes, like cold. First run through, done. That's what I hear. And it doesn't surprise me because it's Robert Fripp. But there you go. All right. At number 2, this had to be there somewhere. One of those, I don't know, rare times, but where a record is so huge, so hyped, but it totally lives up to the reputation because it really is that awesome. Fleetwood Mac's Rumors. I mean, what are you gonna say? I mean, so much ink has been spilled on this one. I'll do a Fleetwood Mac video sometime, maybe a week. I don't know. And obviously, get into all the stories of this record and the making of this record. You guys know the soap opera, right? John McVie and Christine McVie, rest in peace. Their marriage was breaking up. Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks, their relationship was breaking up. Stevie Nicks and Mick Fleetwood secretly had a little romance. I mean, soap opera. It's all poured into these brilliant songs. I cannot say enough about the genius of Lindsey Buckingham as a producer, as an arranger, guitar player. Rumors. But my number one album of 1977 is the solo debut from this guy. He had recently departed from Genesis. So, talking about Peter Gabriel's solo debut, Peter Gabriel, aka Car, or Peter Gabriel 1, because, as many of you may know, he is going to name the next several records of his Peter Gabriel. And so people generally differentiate them by the album art on the front. So this is Car, unofficially, but Peter Gabriel officially. Yeah, I mean, last year in my 1976 video, I talked about the first Genesis record post Peter Gabriel, Trick of the Tail, and I mentioned that it's an amazing record. And I mentioned that they didn't seem to miss Peter Gabriel at all. Well, back at you. This record feels like a declaration of independence. Gabriel is able to sort of indulge all these interesting ideas he had that maybe wouldn't have worked in the group setting of Genesis, and it's just wonderfully all over the place. Some of the experiments work better than others, but it's always interesting and often brilliant. 5-star record. I love Peter. Well, so is, I don't know if I'm doing my 5-star rankings. I mean, let's see, how far do I go back? I would say Low, Heroes, Rumors, and this are all 5-star records. If you want my 5-star ratings, my personal for 77. But yeah, just brilliantly eclectic. It's so cool because he kind of fakes you out, because the opening track, Moribund the Burgermeister, sounds the most Genesis of any track he ever did as a solo artist. And so, it opens with this sort of proggy, weird. It's like, oh, okay, well, you didn't veer in too far, but it's a fake out, right? Because the rest of this record just goes in all kinds of other directions. So it's almost like, okay, here's one look back, and then we're moving forward after that. And then the second track is his declaration of independence. Still considered, one of his great songs, Salisbury Hill, right? One, just a killer track. But secondly, if you look at the lyrics carefully, I mean, what he's really talking about is, he feels free, from I guess the chains of Genesis. I don't know. And then from there, it's all over the place. I mean, Modern Love is awesome. Excuse Me is this really strange barbershop quartet soundy thing. Humdrum, I think, is gorgeous. One of his great sort of unrecognized songs. Slow Burn is awesome on the second side. Waiting for the Big One, it's kind of bluesy stuff. You don't hear Peter Gabriel doing bluesy stuff. Down the Dolce Vita, which is this strange combination of like prog, disco, I don't know. It's really weird. And of course, closing with his beautiful Here Comes the Flood. Yeah, so I mean, it's just, to me, a perfect record, and an amazing start to an amazing career as a solo artist. From here on out, you're going to be seeing a lot of Peter Gabriel on these lists too, because I'm a huge Peter fan. We're going to do a Peter Gabriel week, or probably a week at some point, but I'm waiting on that because he is finally releasing a new record of new material, not just redone material, but new material. His first since 2002. He's putting it out supposedly this year, I.O. So I'm kind of waiting for that, so we can kind of review that in conjunction with maybe putting together a Peter Gabriel week. But it'll come whenever he puts that record out. All right. Man, 1977. What an interesting year. That was fun. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you next time on Amity Tracks. Please do subscribe to the channel. Really helps us out. And, like the videos, hit the bell for notifications, all the usual stuff. But it really means a lot to us, and we'd appreciate it. Thank you. We'll see you later.